How much were the future luxury tax considerations under the new CBA? How much did that weigh on?
You know, we've been in the luxury tax for as far back as I can remember. In general, you know, financial considerations are a part of every deal we make. Every owner, every general manager, you know, that's one of the things you speak about when you're about to make a deal or contemplating a deal. There's always financial considerations, especially going forward with the new collective bargaining agreement.
With it being a loaded draft coming up, how reluctant were you guys to part with those first-round draft picks?
It's hard to do, but we felt, you know, looking at where the picks may end up, you know, right now I don't believe Dallas's pick would come about this year. It may be pushed into the future. So you're looking at our pick, which at this point in time is either the early 20s or the mid 20s. We didn't feel that we can get a better or more talented player than Sessions.
In terms of the mechanics of opinion, like giving people a heads up or communicating with them either before or after the fact and things like that, what are the challenges that go into that?
Well, it used to be years ago, whenever a trade was done, nobody knew about it. If you lived on the East Coast, you didn't know about it until, if there was a trade on the West Coast, you know, because of the time difference and the media capacities, you didn't know about it until the paper came out the next day. So there really wasn't, you know, the issues that you face today. We'll do a deal, and by the time we hang up with the NBA, you know, it's scrolling across the bottom of ESPN what the deal was. And our policy is, you know, the moment the deal is consummated with the NBA, we call the players and the agents immediately, because it's not a deal until that's done. You know, to call a player or an agent an hour or 6 hours or a day in advance, I don't know what that would accomplish. So sometimes you don't get the player or the agent before they find out about it. But you guys are so good at what you do, and it moves so quickly, there's really no way around it.
What was Dr. Buss's interaction with you when you told him the news, the trades you wanted to make?
Most of, you know, my discussions about, you know, the deals we did today were with Jim Buss, and you know, our relationship has evolved to where I spend most of my time with Jim, and Jim spends most of his time with Dr. Buss. From time to time, we'll meet together, all three of us. But, you know, the last, I'd say, week or so, it was Jim and I working directly on these deals.
Yeah, and all the punitive stuff that's going to kick in the next couple of years.
You know, everybody associated with the NBA, since the lockout ended, their job has gotten a lot tougher. It's just a function of the games coming so quickly, new rules, you know, starting from scratch. Kind of, you know, hitting the pavement running, and nobody has really had a moment to wind down or to reflect. I think most of us are, you know, really excited about having the season going and working. My understanding is ratings in the NBA are as good as they've ever been. So it's a fun thing to be involved in. You know, I think, you know, when we get back to some level of normal activity, I think that would be good for everybody.
The new CBA is so punitive for teams that are in the luxury tax, like you guys. It almost includes making like the deals you make now, you have to send salary out instead of taking anything back in, right? I mean,
say that again.
I mean, the new CBA with it's so punitive with the luxury tax rules that are going to start kicking in. Does it change the way you make deals? I mean, like in both the deals, you had to send salary out instead of taking it back in.
Well, Dr. Buss, and I mentioned it earlier, we've paid a luxury tax here for as long as I can remember. And he never gives me a budget. You know, his response, you know, to an acquisition, rather than how much will it cost, you know, how much will it cost is a part of the question. But Mitch, tell me who the player is, and then I'll tell you if I'll spend the money on the player. So I think he'll continue, you know, to look to make acquisitions. But certainly, you know, the financial part of this business can't be ignored. And like I said earlier, that's a part of what a general manager does. You know, you have to sit with your owner, and under the new guidelines and the new rules, you know, not only look at this year, but go out 2 or 3 years. And you take that into consideration. You take into consideration players' ages. When do you think their skills will start to diminish? And then you take into consideration the new rules.
Where do you think you guys are structurally after these deals, both in terms of the assets that you have on the roster, the draft picks you gave up, and those things, and what you might have to continue working with the team going forward?
Well, I think we're a more balanced roster, you know, for what that's worth. You know, I thought we had too many small forwards, and you know, Luke moving on, you know, allowed us to get another front court player. You know, once again, you got to consider the two deals as one deal. We only had 4 front court players. You typically, with a 12 or a 14-man roster, you should have 5 big players. So Jordan Hill will give us 5 front court players. Now we now have 3 small forwards. So I think it's a better roster. In terms of the draft picks, I don't think we could have found a player like Ramon Sessions, you know, if he were available in the 20s this year in the draft.
Do you feel financially that the team is set up better in terms of looking forward to the next couple of years than you were before that?
Yes, I do. I think we've made some strides reallocating our resources. I mentioned earlier we have 3 point guards, you know, all making about the same amount of money, which is a good amount of money. And knowing that one of them probably won't play or won't start, and the other one might come off the bench, it doesn't make sense to have your resources there, especially considering, you know, the new rules and how we have to balance things. And we have 3 of the highest paid players in the NBA on one roster. You won't see that very often in the NBA.
You
When you talk about